Discovered deep within an Illinois cave in 1982, a trove of over 7,000 artifacts called into question the traditional understanding of North American history. These perplexing relics, referred to as the Burrows Cave artifacts, revealed a long-lost link between the Mediterranean and the New World. Is it possible that Burrows Cave holds the power to reshape and rewrite our history? The Burrows Cave artifacts have captivated the interest of historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike since their discovery. This remarkable collection houses over thousands of relics, including coins, tablets, and sculptures, and the artifacts themselves are adorned with unusual symbols and images, which bear a striking resemblance to ancient scripts and iconography from Egyptian, Greek, and Roman cultures. These findings have led some to propose that the Mediterranean civilizations may have had contact with the indigenous peoples of North America, potentially influencing the course of history in ways that are yet to be fully understood. However, the authenticity of the Burrows Cave artifacts has been a subject of intense debate. While some argue that these relics could provide a groundbreaking insight into the history of the ancient world, others remain skeptical, citing the lack of corroborating evidence and questioning the motives behind their discovery. In 1982, Russell Burrows, an adventurer with a penchant for exploring long-forgotten locations, heard whispers of a region in Illinois once home to several old homesteads. With curiosity piqued, Burrows ventured into the rugged, wooded countryside, armed with a metal detector, hoping to uncover relics of the past, remnants of old stoves, lamps, wedges, axe heads, and other traces of early settlers. While taking a break to eat lunch on a bluff overlooking a valley, Burrows stood up and accidentally stepped on the edge of a flat, round rock. To his surprise, the rock flipped as if on a pivot, and he found himself plummeting into a concealed pit below. In his own words, Burrows described the harrowing experience.
I found myself falling into a pit which had been obscured beneath a large oval stone which, as I later discovered, was fitted into the pit opening and designed to flip or turn over when stepped on. The unfortunate victim would fall to the bottom of the pit, the stone would swing back in place, and the victim would be trapped. I was fortunate. When I stepped on that stone, I was in the act of turning, and the stone, instead of flipping over, slid off to one side and left the pit open.
Upon regaining his bearings, Burrows clung to the edge of the pit by his elbows, driven by a deep-seated fear of encountering snakes. Once free from the pit's clutches, he began to examine his surroundings, which marked the beginning of an extraordinary adventure. After calming his nerves, Burrows realized he was in a chamber adorned with a massive face on one wall.
I did not have to be a genius to figure out that I had stumbled into something that just should not be in Illinois. I have hunted for and found many artifacts of the American Indians, and there are many of their sites in my part of the state, but I knew then that this was not Native American. The face I had been nose to nose with was different from anything I had ever seen. The nose was flat, the eyes were wide set, and the lips were thick. Then, of course, there were all those strange symbols to consider. I had crawled under a ledge and was looking for petroglyphs such as I had seen in the pit. I had searched all the walls of the entire length of the valley, and while I had seen a few scratchings, I was not all that excited about what I had seen so far. Finally, I gave up on this last place and decided to quit. In disgust, I tossed my small rock pick against the inside wall of the overhang. The rock gave out a distinctly unnatural sound, a hollow ring, not what I'd expect from solid rock. As it was now clear that a cave was on the other side, my first entrance was through this portal and into a tunnel-like passage which has a drop-off of about 3 feet just inside of the portal. I was met with a strong, musty odor, not of decay, but musty. As I moved my head and light around, I saw a full human skeleton reposing on a large block of stone. It scared the hell out of me. Then I began to see other things lying there with those bones. I saw axe heads, spear points, and something else, metal. The skeleton was laid out upon a solid block large enough to hold not only the remains, but artifacts as well. The artifacts include axe heads of marble and other stone material, an axe head of what appears to be bronze, a short sword of what appears to be bronze, and other artifacts which might be considered personal weapons. There were also a set of 3 bronze spears, the longest being about 6 feet long and the shortest about 3 feet. The skeletal remains bear several fine artifacts such as armbands, headbands, and other such items, all of gold.
To his astonishment, the cave housed a vast collection of peculiar artifacts that seemed to defy conventional historical understanding. The cave's walls were adorned with intricate carvings and inscriptions, while the floor was strewn with coins, tablets, and sculptures, a treasure trove of ancient relics that seemed entirely out of place in the American Midwest. The Burrows Cave artifacts encompass a diverse array of objects, many of which display a striking resemblance to the artistic styles and iconography of ancient Mediterranean civilizations. Among the most notable finds are gold and bronze coins inscribed with the portraits of historical figures such as Alexander the Great and Cleopatra, as well as tablets featuring hieroglyphics, Greek lettering, and even Latin inscriptions. Intriguingly, some of these artifacts appear to depict scenes from biblical and classical mythology, while others contain maps and navigational charts that could potentially shed light on ancient maritime exploration. Egyptian, Etruscan, Greek, Scandinavian, Roman, Vedic, and Hebrew etchings and artifacts were all discovered. 5 8-foot-tall anthropomorphic statues stand in the main tunnel passageway. There are carvings which resemble the Egyptian god Anubis. Some are accompanied with hieroglyphics embossed on a gold plate. There are also Mesoamerican-style artifacts that resemble that of the Olmec civilization. Most astonishing is that deep in the caves can be found crypts, where the apparent bodies who left the cache of artifacts are buried. Dr. John White from the Midwestern Epigraphic Society carefully examined one of the artifacts retrieved from Burrows Cave, an incredibly rare menorah featuring a triangular base. This exceptional discovery is captivating, as only 2 examples of such menorahs exist in ancient Jewish sources, dating back to the 1st century BC when the menorah still stood in the Second Temple. Before the Second Temple's destruction, menorahs were not depicted due to the prohibition against replicating sacred objects. Following the temple's destruction, depictions of menorahs with 3 legs as a base began to emerge. Interestingly, the first portrayal of a triangular-based menorah can be traced back to coins minted by the last Judean king in 37 BC. This act was considered forbidden during that time, and the triangular-based menorah did not appear again until its unearthing in Burrows Cave. Burrows Cave is strikingly reminiscent of an Egyptian-style mausoleum. The construction of this mysterious site parallels the tombs of ancient Egyptian kings, boasting a watertight design. Despite never having visited Egypt, Burrows' description uncannily matches that of the famous tombs. In the mid-90s, a geologist and author of rock art pieces from Burrows Cave studied some of the stone artifacts and concluded that the significant weathering on their surfaces indicated the stones were very old, potentially dating back to the time of Christ. One of the relics that was translated apparently tells the tale of how some leaders of Ptolemaic Egypt were secretly sent to America in ships provided by the Mauritanian king Juba II and his wife Cleopatra Selene, daughter of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. The bodies buried in the crypts of Burrows Cave would then be of these individuals, including the queen's 2 brothers who both disappeared from Rome and recorded history in 17 AD, Ptolemy Philadelphus and Alexander Helios. Some of the artifacts display designs that seem to be carvings of various animals, including bulls and birds. The plus sign within a circle seen in 2 artifacts represents the symbol of the sun or a sun deity. The descending rays emanating from the sun and the animal closest to the sun highlight its importance. In Burrows Cave, these depictions resemble those found in Asia and Göbekli Tepe, depicting stacked animals, with bulls or bull hybrids remaining close to the sun's rays. The Burrows Cave artifacts have profound implications for our understanding of history, suggesting that ancient Mediterranean explorers may have ventured to North America centuries before Columbus. This theory is supported by the presence of Egyptian, Greek, and Roman iconography on the artifacts, as well as the apparent influence of these cultures on indigenous American art and architecture. But is it real? Despite the tantalizing possibilities raised by the Burrows Cave artifacts, their authenticity has been a subject of heated debate among scholars and researchers. Critics argue that the lack of supporting archaeological evidence, such as the remains of ancient settlements or the presence of Mediterranean artifacts in other North American sites, casts doubt on the validity of the finds. Some have even suggested that the artifacts could be part of an elaborate hoax designed to attract attention and financial gain. In contrast, proponents of the artifacts' authenticity argue that the sheer volume and complexity of the relics, as well as the presence of obscure symbols and inscriptions, make it unlikely that they could have been fabricated by a modern forger. The exact location of Burrows Cave has remained a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few individuals, including Russell Burrows himself. Nobody else has seen the cave. Despite numerous requests from archaeologists and researchers to visit the site and conduct a thorough investigation, access has been consistently denied, raising suspicions about the authenticity of the artifacts and the intentions of those involved in their discovery. Some speculate that the cave may have been deliberately concealed to prevent vandalism or looting, while others suggest that its secrecy could be part of an elaborate hoax designed to maintain the mystique surrounding the artifacts. In the face of mounting skepticism and conflicting evidence, alternative theories about the origin and significance of the Burrows Cave artifacts have emerged. Some researchers have proposed that the artifacts might represent the remnants of a secret society or esoteric order that sought to preserve the knowledge and traditions of the ancient Mediterranean world in the New World. Others have suggested that the artifacts could be the work of a skilled 19th or 20th century forger who created them as part of an elaborate hoax, or that they might even be the product of a genuine but misunderstood historical phenomenon, such as the migration of European settlers or the influence of classical art on indigenous American cultures. But is it all a hoax or the real deal? Before the discovery of Burrows Cave, an Indiana man named John A. Ward claimed to have come into possession of extremely ancient rock artifacts, which he believed displayed man-made etchings. These artifacts inspired him to write a historical fiction novel called Ancient Archives Among the Cornstalks. The story revolves around an ancient hero who marries a prostitute from the Mediterranean and then sets out to explore and discover the Americas, where he records his history on stone. Upon hearing about the cave's discovery, John grew convinced that his novel held elements of truth and eagerly showcased some of the artifacts. Between 1982 and 1991, Burrows loaned Jack hundreds of relics. During this time, numerous local articles emerged in journals such as the Epigraphic Society, accusing Burrows of exhibiting counterfeit artifacts. Experts dismissed the objects as fakes without inspecting any actual pieces, but rather by examining sketches. Due to the initial skepticism and outright disapproval from certain circles in the Americas, Burrows Cave faded into obscurity and is now predominantly deemed a hoax. There is no record of the artifacts being cataloged in a museum, indexed, or subjected to proper scientific scrutiny. Most of the photos we see today were taken in 1991 by a researcher and author who took an interest in the subject, met with Burrows and John, Jack, and attempted to document and photograph the remaining artifacts. Many had been sold off to collectors during the 1980s. From around 1985 to 1995, various academics contacted Burrows to arrange for viewings of the cave, but he always managed to find a reason to cancel their visit or impose unacceptable research conditions. In one case, he blamed the cave's landowner, but no one could verify who this person was, as the cave's location remained unknown. In 1986, archaeologist James P. Whittle offered to inspect the cave but was denied access due to his insistence on using scientific rigor, which angered Burrows. In other instances, he feared that researchers would steal the $60 million worth of gold supposedly hidden within the cave. In 1999, Burrows signed a contract with a group of scientists, agreeing to reveal the cave entrance's location. In the July issue of Ancient American, the authors published an enthusiastic article about Burrows Cave, announcing that its location would soon be revealed and excavation was imminent. 3 years later, the team still had not gained access to the site, as it turned out that the landowner had never actually been in contact with Burrows. Consequently, the scientists had to attempt arranging a new agreement. 42 months later, after a plethora of renegotiations and painstaking fundraising to set out and explore the infamous Burrows Cave, They discovered that the entrance to the cave was deliberately closed with dynamite. On top of this, Burrows had then changed his mind and told the researchers the actual entrance is some 40 miles away, and that it was being studied by a private and anonymous group of archaeologists from an unidentified major university. Unable to access the cave due to Joe's reluctance to reveal its location and the entrance being obscured by rock debris, the Discovery team in 1999 resorted to using high-tech radar equipment. They performed 3 passes over the site with deep ground-penetrating radar, which remarkably aligned with the map purported to represent Burrows Cave. The radar detected 4 subterranean cavities in a row at a uniform depth, and the findings suggested that these spaces had a high probability of being non-geologic. Later, a specialized metal detector capable of distinguishing between smelted metal and ore was employed. Burrows had always described the underground site as filled with precious and semi-precious metal objects. The metal detector indicated the presence of large metal objects, including copper and gold, arranged in vertical piles or standing upright, reminiscent of statues. But why does Burrows' story of the cave discovery sound like something out of an Indiana Jones film? Steven Spielberg's blockbuster movie came out less than a year before the cave discovery. In Burrows' own account, he recalls falling into a trapdoor of rock only to be greeted by a pit of snakes. The caves themselves were adorned with treasures and gold and lost relics, all reminiscent of a Hollywood blockbuster plot. But despite decades of investigation and debate, the Burrows Cave artifacts have yet to be conclusively proven authentic or fraudulent. The enigmatic nature of the artifacts and the ongoing secrecy surrounding the cave's location have only served to deepen the mystery. With no definitive evidence to support or refute the artifacts' alleged ancient Mediterranean origin, researchers and enthusiasts are left with more questions than answers. If true, Burrows Cave would rewrite every history book in the world. Or is this just a fantastical tale of fraud and fame for money? Are the Burrows Cave artifacts evidence of a long-lost connection between the Mediterranean and North America, or merely products of a skilled forger's imagination? To this day, Russell Burrows is the only person to have ever seen the cave.